All right, hi everybody, and welcome to another installment of Ozzy and Keats. We're not great, we're just okay. John Keating here at the Oddside Ales Tap Room in downtown Grand Haven. Chris Osgood is in his home in suburban Detroit. We are coming to you through the hand-holding, as always, of Podcast Nation in Troy. And as we begin, Ozzy's back home in Detroit. He spent the summer at his castle in Western Canada. And everybody moved in. Everybody came back from Western Canada to Michigan. But as we begin, as I understand it, there are some new residents that have taken up residence in your home in Western Canada. You want to talk about that as we begin?
Yeah, raccoons, right? Obviously.
Well,
I mean, I live in
do we leave food out? What happened here?
No, they get in the soffits and they've been ruining everything. They went to the bathroom 1 and 2 everywhere. It's demolished, and they tear stuff up. They wreck stuff. I mean, you can hear them at night. I actually tried to get them. I'm not very good at that. I attempt to with a hockey stick, by the way. But they've just demolished the inside of the house, inside of the foundation of the house. So Jenna's flown out there to try and see if they can get that fixed up a bit. I'm sitting here. I'm like, did I like pee my pants? It smells like pee here, John. I look down. One of my dogs, because we've been gone a long time, has peed right underneath my chair in where I'm sitting.
This is classy.
It's like,
this is classy.
It's not, but you know what I mean. I mean, well, you do know what I mean here the next couple of years.
As you get older.
Hey, one word for you, depends.
There was I'll tell the story. I was in Costco, and one of my coworkers, I happened to bump into him, and we said hello, and as he's as we're separating, I said, "What was that, sir? What was that? You're looking for the Depends?" And there were people walking by, and a guy said, "Are you looking for the pens, like to write?" And he said, "The pens are over there." I said, "No, this man is looking for Depends. That's what he's looking for." And I got the giggles from him as he walked away.
And you joke around about it, but in the Maple Leafs Red Wings outdoor game at the big house, the Canadian people were on the one side, with Leaf fans, Red Wing fans on one. I'm cruising around, the bathrooms there. It's like the old Joe Louis. It's hard to go there. It's big lineups. And there's a brilliant move.
Oh, no.
The Canadians had Depends on. And when they got filled up, they'd take them off and reload with another one. So you'd have to go to the bathroom. and I'm actually sitting there in line forever thinking to myself, it's a mistake. I should have a pair on right now.
Oh, my gosh.
Because really, people know when you're drinking some beers and you break the seal, it's a grind after that. So it was a brilliant move by a lot of people there.
Well, first of all, there's 100,000 people watching that outdoor game, and there is some thought that's attached to that. Secondly, if any of the people, the good people who work at Depends, is consuming the Ozzy and Keats podcast, they should sponsor us. Now,
we're looking for sponsors.
That would be perfect. I mean, that'd
be a fantastic sponsor for you. Yeah, obviously.
For us, not for me, for us, for both of us. So
I love that.
All right, so you've got raccoons in your house. What other critters have found their way into your various homes?
Cougar underneath my deck. Those aren't good.
There's all kinds of places I could go with that, but I'm not going to.
But there was a cougar. I wasn't there, thank goodness. And I have one of my friends checks on my house. He hates going all the way down there to look underneath there. And it's not me, it's him that does it. But I mean, how do you look for that? You don't want to run into one of those. There's bears that fly through my yard, black bears at that. They're not going to do much. I mean, but they've had their paws up against my windows of my truck. They look for food. That's what they're looking for. On garbage night, they're everywhere. So you gotta obviously be careful what you put out there or what you're doing at night around there. So, and Jenna always likes to go hiking in the back of Provincial Park. It's beautiful. I will not go in there. Cougars are too big. If you've ever seen one live, my friend has. They're massive. It's like a lion, so there's not a chance that I'll ever go in there. I'm thinking of ways to go. Remember that show, 100 Ways to Die? That would not be one of the ones that would be very good. I got dragged into the woods by a cougar. Not a chance.
Well,
depending on who the cougar was.
Oh my God,
as you would say.
Well, all right. We'll get back to the critters in a second. What is your number one way to die?
In my sleep. It has to be.
With no one. Yeah.
Or would you rather? No, that's a good question, because would you rather be surrounded by everybody you know so you can say bye, or would you rather pat and then you would never know, right? I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
But then you're in the hospital, you're eating that shitty food, you know, like can't swear on us. But you know, like I don't know. What would your I would say I I would say at home just before I fell asleep. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, the line that I've always used,
Yep.
and you've heard me say this, is I wanna be shot in the head by a jealous husband. My wife doesn't think that's as funny as I do when I share that with people. She
No.
doesn't seem to enjoy that joke as much as I do, but, anyway, so
So your terminology for that is that you had been having a lot of fun before you were eventually taken out by the jealous husband.
exactly, that's the way to go, that's the way to go. Alright, back to the critters. And I'll share this. We had in our home in suburban Detroit an owl. An
An
owl
owl?
got into the house, and so
Really?
you walk into the dining room, and
Yeah.
there's an owl that had come down the chimney, I guess, and was
How
looking
big?
at
Like at full blown
it
adult?
wasn't a huge owl, but it was an owl that was big enough and creepy enough to be looking at, right at you, and I said to the owl, "Do you know who Chris Osgood is?" And he said, "Who?
Yeah.
Who?"
Who did he? So is this a joke or was there really
That's
an
a
owl in
no,
your house?
that's a joke. There was an owl in the house, and so you call animal control, and they basically sort of shepherd the owl out of the house, but, to see it fly from room to room is, creepy. I mean, it just is. I mean, any bird in the house is always going to be that,
Really?
but particularly, an owl. Have you not had birds in the house ever?
No, I'm not. I'm not afraid of owls or even rattlesnakes. We used to catch them when I was younger. I'm afraid of anything that could actually eat me, as in like a shark, a cougar, or a bear.
Yeah.
Those are the three things.
Right, and there was a shark story, right, when you were swimming in.
No, that was a barracuda because Jenna, who my wife, who was a great swimmer, I had a life jacket on, thank goodness, way out, and I was younger. So you know, when you're younger, you have no fear, and we went beyond the reef, and it was too far for me. And there's a huge barracuda, right? And that wasn't even a shark, but I'm not a water person either. Believe me, I like the water to be right about chest high at the most. I can touch the bottom.
So you can touch. What are
So
you,
that was
9? I mean, are you
yeah,
9?
but in the ocean, that was beyond my comfort zone by
Yeah.
far. And that and scared of heights. I don't like to go in the ocean beyond here, but my chest. I live on a lake. I go in there no problem. But I anything I can't see, so that darkness, I don't know what's down there. I don't want to see what's down there.
Alright, I need to mention here, and again, I should have done this off the top, but I'm so excited to see you that I always launch right in, but, Keith Gave, the, sort of
Yeah.
legendary hockey writer for the Detroit Free Press and author of books, and has a terrific story because he was very much involved in the Russian Five, and Sergei Fedorov, who will have his number retired at Little Caesars Arena this season in January, how he became a Red Wing. So
Yeah.
Keith Gave is going to join us coming up, and he should have stories of covering a young Chris Osgood, a young shirtless Chris Osgood, I'm guessing.
I was young then, though. I'm not so sure because when I got drafted, I was 150 pounds, could bench press my weight once, which was actually a feat for me at that time. Probably sizzled off 2 pull-ups, maybe 22 push-ups, maybe 15 sit-ups. So I wasn't exactly ready to go shirtless at that point in my career, but I did get a nickname, Doogie Howser. People remember who that is, and we're
Of course,
referencing
yeah, right.
the old doctor show. So I did look young, and yeah, Keith was there at the time. So I'm interested to see what he thought of a young
Okay.
Doogie Howser at that time.
That's coming up. But when you found your way into the NHL, and compare it to what, and you're seeing that with your son and the kids who go through Team USA, what how different the fitness level is for these kids compared to what it was when you and Maltz and McCarty were coming up through Adirondack and Glens Falls when you're playing.
Yeah, it
Um,
was way different. I mean, the fitness testing has evolved. They don't even really need to do fitness testing. They're all in great shape now. I mean, we did it to see where everybody's at and what they had to do to get you to the point where you're ready for the regular season. I mean, these guys are all in phenomenal shape. They work out year round. They skate year round almost. I mean, the guys that were always in great shape was Draper, always, aka Chuck Norris, who we're trying to get on here. I mean, if Chuck would come on too, that'd be great. Vladimir Konstantinov, always in
if
unbelievable
we get
shape.
Chuck, we have to get Christy Brinkley because they're they're tied together, right?
And we could really go over we're speaking fitness, so we could talk about the Gazelle glider. Is that what they
Right.
use? Or is yeah, they got a bunch of different
Yeah,
things that
right.
keep you going as
There you
life
go.
moves.
There's the connection. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Here are sponsor opportunities for us.
the Gazelle
Depends.
glider,
This depends, and then get Chuck and Christy on together. All right, and talk about. I don't think it was the Gazelle glider. I think it
no, the
was.
Gazelle glider might have been Tony Little.
Yeah, yeah. I can't think of
Yeah.
the. Yeah. All right. Anyway. So here's one question for you, then we'll bring in Keith Gave. All right. Question from one of our viewers, one of the Harpers is you played in some of the most pressure filled games in NHL history and even scored a goal in the league, something most players never get to do. What was going through your head in the moment? And we remember it in Hartford when the goal went in.
That's funny. We were playing in the mall in Hartford, the old rink, and I told Drapes I was going to score a goal that game. I think Drapes was injured; he wasn't playing. And back then, obviously the scoreboards highlights were unavailable on there. And Drapes actually was coming from the press box down to the dressing room, missed the goal, and then he was in the corner with his lips through the crack because the crack is about that big. And he goes, "Did you score?" So I skate over there. I scored, but like we can't hear each other. His lips are going through there, trying to talk to me. Like I can't hear them. As the game, I go, "Yeah, I scored." He goes, "No, you didn't. You didn't believe me." And he had missed it, so it was pretty cool. But back then, you could never see the highlight of it until you saw it like on a Sunday night sports show because there was no like replays of it
Right.
online.
No,
There was
yeah,
none of that. So
no
Drapes and
jumbotron
I,
even, right?
no
Was there?
nothing. So
Right.
Drapes and I waited, and we lived at the Riverfront Apartments for Sunday sports in Detroit, one of the channels, to try and see the highlight of the goal because you could not see it unless it was on VHS tape, and then around it we saw it at practice. But when I got it, I had an inclination of going for goals that year, and I think it was I think Shanny actually was with Hartford on the ice for it, but Glenn Wesley dumped it in. I remember getting it, and I almost hit Nick Lindstrom right in the head. It just missed his eyes. He ducked, and thank goodness it didn't hit him. I believe Vladdy was on the ice too, and Stevie. So a lot of cool people on the ice. So I love that photo when they're all over me because you got like 5 Hall of Famers around you. Dump it on top of me. So it was really cool. I got the stick in my shack above there, and it's been there since since 96, I think, with the puck. So I've had that for a long time.
That's cool.
So
That's cool.
a cool moment for sure.
Yeah, and a shocker that Chris Draper and you don't believe each other when one person says something, the other one doesn't necessarily believe it automatically.
And the funny thing is, like back then, I think it was like Billy Smith and Ron Hextall might have scored. So I was only like the third or fourth, but now there's been lots of guys like of course, Marty Brew is great with the puck scored. And then a plethora of guys. Then I started doing this little gig on, with Ken Daniels and you and all that stuff. And I've actually done 2 games. I've watched and called 2 goalie goals. It's crazy. So one was in Colorado, Mike Smith, and I can't remember the other one. It was, I think, the Islanders goalie. So it was
Spectacular.
crazy that you watch great. 2. And you used to like say, like anything, oh my gosh, that never happens. But now it happens so much, you kind of you don't really you don't think as much about it anymore as you used to. But it's still a really cool thing.
All right, let's step aside, and we'll bring in the legendary sports writer, author Keith Gave on the other side. All right, and there he is, the lovely and talented still Keith Gave, who's got stories of having covered the Red Wings in the glory days in the 90s. And as we begin, as we do with all of our guests, Mr. Gave, tell me the story that will greatly embarrass Chris Osgood.
But I go all the way back to a conversation I had with one of the kindest and sweetest guys I've ever met in an NHL dressing room. His name was Tim Chevelday.
Sure.
And I was talking to Chevy, just him and I, trying to get a beat on the new kid that they just called up. Looked like he was about 11 years old, as you recall. And tell us a little bit about this guy. Trying to write a story about Chris Osgood, and didn't know much about him. And I figured that Chevy might know a little bit more about him, thinking about how goaltenders think and so on. And I kind of stumped him a little bit. He says, I'm still getting to know him, but the one thing I will say about Chris Osgood is he's a very interesting person, really interesting guy. And so, I mean, I covered much of Chris's career. Watched him win Stanley Cups, and then been watching him on TV all these years and so on. And I'm still, as much as I've watched, I'm still trying to figure out what Chevrolet was talking about. Such an interesting guy. Can you figure it out, John?
No. I mean, he might be, well, interesting in that I have no idea how he won 400 games because he's got the ADD. I mean, there's, trying to get his attention or get him to focus. I haven't been able to figure that out as long as I've been working with him, and yet somehow he won 400 games in the NHL and should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Would you agree on that he should be in the Hall of Fame?
Oh my God, yes. My God, yes. Absolutely. I've been on that bandwagon for a long time, and his number should be in the rafters at Little Caesars Arena as well. And this whole raising numbers to the rafters thing is kind of a hotbed issue. Obviously, they're going to finally raise Sergei's number, and he deserves that. He's earned it. I also think it's the province of the owners to decide which numbers are up there and which ones aren't. That's one of the things that they get to decide, and I don't have a problem with making Sergei wait. After all, he disappointed the team a couple of times, so I can understand both sides. I'll be glad. I'll be there to see it when it goes up, and I'll be happy for him and so on. I'd like to see a few more numbers up there, including Chris's. And I'll tell you what, guys, I can make an argument. I don't like this idea that you have to be in the Hall of Fame to have your number up there. I don't buy that. I could make a pretty good argument that number 33 should be up there as well. Yeah. Look at his body of work, 4 Stanley Cups, the top 10 playoff games of all time, and so on. What Chris Draper has done in a Detroit Red Wings uniform is deserving of having his number up there. I know that's controversial, but I'll take that to my grave as well.
Well, they got him for $1.
Yeah,
it cost him $1 to get. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I decided to write this latest book, The Grind Line. And I wasn't sure whether there was a book there or not. I knew that Russian 5 was, obviously, but I had a dinner with Scotty Bowman a couple of years ago down in Florida, and we started talking about these guys, and basically what he said was these 4 guys. The 4 guys on the Grind Line, you know who they are: Osgood, Maltby, and the 2 right wingers, Joey Kosar first, and then Darren McCarty glommed onto the Grind Line. These 4 guys made all the difference. And when Scotty said that, I knew I had to write the book, and I had a blast writing the book. I'll tell you, it's a lot more fun writing them than trying to sell the damn things. But writing it was a lot of fun, and I got an earful. Maltby, Draper, these guys. I did the stories that I heard involving Chris Osgood. As a matter of fact, he's an honorary member of the Grind Line. He spent so much time with those guys.
No, I did.
John,
I babysitted them.
Did he ever tell you? You ever did Chris ever tell you about the time he opened up his dressing room? I mean, his hotel room door, and there was a big pop machine standing right in the doorway.
That was them.
He did share that story.
I was stuck in there. Bus was waiting for us. I couldn't get out of my room at the Lowe's in Santa Monica.
And can you imagine trying to move one of those? Those are heavy machines.
It was Kosher and McCarty. It was all 4 of them.
Exactly.
And no cell phones to call for help. Yeah.
No,
right?
just the front desk who really didn't care much about it.
All right. Well, you mentioned Sergei. Let's before we get too far away from Sergei, whose number is going to be raised to the rafters at Little Caesars Arena in January. His NHL career, it could be argued, doesn't happen without Keith Gave, and it's a legendary story and still so improbable when you hear it from your perspective. Mr. Gabe, walk us through your involvement in Sergei Fedorov becoming a Red Wing and finding his way to the NHL and ultimately to the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I tell that story in the Russian 5 book that continues to have legs, but I spent 6 years in the military as a Russian linguist before I got into the newspaper business. And I was a news guy for about 6 or 7 years before I came on to the sports department at the Detroit Free Press. And I wound up on the Red Wings beat in 1985, the summer of 85. I got it when Peter Klima was defecting from Czechoslovakia. And I had the great fortune to cover the worst season in the history, the 100-year history of the Detroit Red Wings. They finished 1757 at 640 points after Sports Illustrated had predicted them to win the Stanley Cup in the previous September. But anyways, about 4 years, 1989, the Red Wings started drafting Russians. They'd kind of plateaued. They got pretty good under Jacques Demers. They got pretty good. Then they started to go backwards again. And Jim Devellano says, we're going to go try and maybe draft a couple of Russians. And they got Sergei Fedorov in the 4th round and Vladimir Konstantinov in the 11th round that year. And about a month after that draft, I got a call out of the blue from Jim Lights, who asked me to have lunch, and it was a sense of urgency in his voice. What's this all about? Well, we'll talk about it over lunch. And so we had. I met him the next day, and he starts telling me that he heard that the Soviet national team is going to have a training camp in Finland, and maybe I could go over there since I speak Russian and write a few letters to Sergei and Vladdy and let them know that the Red Wings really want to help them defect and come play hockey in Detroit.
Because they were precluded, just to inject this for people who don't know, the Russians were not allowed to leave Russia and find the Soviet Union. And
yes, we were in the middle of a Cold War then, and the Berlin Wall, this Iron Curtain still existed. These guys couldn't. They were basically conscripted slave players playing for maybe the best hockey program in the world at the time. But they got Sergei Fedorov, who was the best young player in the world in his age group at the time. And like I said, in the 4th round, 1 round after Nick Lidstrom, by the way. And they needed to get messages to these guys. And I kind of gave a timeout. I said, Jim, I can't. There's no way I can do that. I work for the Detroit Free Press covering your team. I can't do you any favors. He said, well, did I mention that we're willing to pay a lot of money? And he mentioned 6 figures. He mentioned the term 6 figures. And I know where that started. And I know how much money I was making at the Free Press at that time. This is life-changing money, right?
Yeah.
And but I was getting a little offended. I said, Jim, I can't do it. I'll lose my job. If anybody finds out, I'll lose my job at the Free Press. And I kind of like this job. And so we kind of left it at that. And and thinking about it, I spent 6 years in the spy business in West Berlin, the capital of the spy industry at the time. And, I never had a good cloak and dagger assignment, really. I was pretty low level business, what I was doing. And I called Lights back and I said, maybe there's a way we can do this. And he said, how's that? And I said, I'll go over there. But I won't take it. I'm not taking a dime of your money. I'll pay my way over there. I'll cash in some air miles. I'll go over there. I'll write some letters and let these guys know you want them to defect. He told me what they're willing to pay them Steve Eiserman kind of money to come over here, pay their families a certain amount of money every year as long as they're members of the Red Wings, and so on. And I put all this in a letter, and I said, I can do this. I'll do this if I can on one condition. He said, what's that? I said, I wanted to be the first one with the news when these guys start, come over here. I want the news first. And essentially, I was a beat guy making a deal with a source, which happens all the time in the newspaper business, the news business. And he said, deal. And so I went over there and I got it was I don't want to make a long story longer, but I was really, really lucky. I was able to get a little audience with these guys. They pulled them right out of the dressing room, out of the shower. They both had white towels around their waist. They got goosebumps all over, dripping with water. And there was no time for me to do any kind of an interview, but I was able to slip them the messages in a little media guide, a Red Wings media guide. And, they got the messages, and about that was in August. In July the following year, I got a phone call out of the blue, and I was living in Dearborn at the time, and it was Lights again. He said, "Keith," and I said, "Yeah." I said, "This is Jim Lights. Guess where I am?" And I said, "Where's that, Jim?" He said, "I'm in Mr. Illich's airplane flying back from Portland, Oregon. Guess who's sitting next to me?" I said, "Who would that be?" And he said, "Sergei Fedorov."
Wow.
I said, "Great," and I pushed my plate of food away. I took notes for about 10 minutes or so. I'm looking at my watch, checking my deadline. And I didn't call the sports desk. I called the city desk, the news desk. And
Sure.
I said, "This Keith Gave." He said, what are you doing, Colin? Hockey doesn't start for another 3 months. I said, "Yeah." I said, "What do you got going on page 1 tomorrow?" And he said, "Why? What do you care?" And I said, "Because whatever you got going on, I'm going to blow it out of the water." He said, "What's happening?" And I said, "There's a Soviet defector on his way from the Goodwill Games in Portland, Oregon, right now to play hockey for the Detroit Red Wings. His name is Sergei Fedorov." Little bit of a pause. He said, "You got 35 minutes."
No.
And I hung up the phone. I got my laptop out and I typed my ass off for 35 minutes, and I pressed the button and sent it off to the Free Press. And the next day, page 1 above the fold, Soviet defector on his way to Detroit to play hockey for the Red Wings. That's how it started.
Incredible. When you look back, do you still shake your head about that? I mean, because I'm sure there's generations of hockey, of Red Wing fans who might not know how much subterfuge there was back then in leading to the creation of the Russian Five, who became one of the greatest stories in hockey history.
Yeah, and the story still has legs, by the way. We were able to put together a nice documentary. Got Chris to sit down in his beautiful
Yeah, in the basement. I remember that.
it was basement, but it
Yeah.
was like a museum actually, but it was quite nice. We got everybody to sit down with us. Scotty Bowman was very gracious to sit down with us a couple of times and so on. Turned out to be a pretty nice documentary, won lots of awards. And I got a call about 3 years ago from other filmmakers, another filmmaker, the Canadian company, actually. They're working with the film makers in Hollywood, and they want to make a feature film about the Russian Five. This was 3 years ago now. A guy came and spent about 4 days with me here in northern Michigan. I live on Houghton Lake. And spent 4 days with me interviewing me. And then he went down to Texas. He spent 3 or 4 days interviewing Jim Lights, the other guy in this.
Sure. The principal,
I mean, he's the guy who made it all happen, obviously. But very, very, very recently, we just sold the rights to the book, and I sold life rights. Jim and I both signed a contract for life rights. And they are in the process, as we speak right now, writing the script for the screenplay to make a feature film about the Russian Five. And they hope to. This is all pie in the sky still right now, but they hope to start shooting next year, early next year, and actually have a feature film about the Russian Five. Yeah,
that is so
Wow.
cool.
You'd be in the movie. Who would play you, Keith? What actor would play Keith Gave?
They've actually got 2 actors signed. They got 2 guys
Really?
signed, and you'll know them both.
think
But I
Steve
can't
Carell would
say
be good.
I can't say anything.
Oh, come on.
I cannot.
It's just
I'm
us.
sorry.
It's just
I'm
the
sorry.
three of
I can't.
us.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just us.
It's just us. I know. I
It's gotta be
probably told
Clooney
you.
or
I probably
Pitt,
told you
right?
more than they're comfortable with me saying right now.
yeah.
But
Okay. All right.
but it's
Well-
it's pretty exciting.
That'd be fantastic if that
Yeah.
happened.
They sell it as kind of it's really the first part of the book. It's not even the whole story. It's that early part, the whole espionage, subterfuge that you mentioned, John. That part of the story is what they want to blow up into something pretty cool.
That'd be awesome.
All right, I'll jump in here. You
Yeah.
mentioned Scotty Bowman on your list of the most fascinating people you covered. Scotty's got to be near the top, right?
Absolutely. And Chris knows, and all the players that I covered at the time knows of my I had a really kind of love-hate relationship with Scotty for a long time. We had our moments. There was a time in his hotel room on the first day of the season, 1995-96 in Denver, first game of the new Colorado Avalanche. And Scotty wasn't happy with what I had written in the Free Press that morning after an interview with Ray Shepard. and Scotty called me to his room, and I like poor Bill Jameson was right in the middle of this stuff. Our PR, lovable PR director, right? He wanted Scotty wants you in his room right now. I said, "Well, tell Scotty to wait. I'll see him at the rink for the morning skate. No, he wants to see you right now." And I said, "Tell Scotty I don't work for him. I work for the Free Press." And I didn't want to put any more pressure on Bill. He was feeling enough. Said, all right, I'll be down in a minute. I took a quick shower, went down. We went up to Scotty's room, and as soon as I got there, Scotty picked up the phone and says, "Yeah, get in here. I'm in room 1602, whatever it is." And a few minutes later, there's a soft knock on the door, and Ray Shepard slinks in, and he said, "Sit down over there." And Shepard grabs a seat on the nearby the little couch, and I sat on one end of the couch. Scotty sat on the other, and he said, "So interesting story in the paper this morning, huh?" And I resisted the old slap shot phrase. Yeah, I just trying to capture the spirit of the thing.
Yeah.
Remember that line from Slapshot?
No, it's a great line.
right.
Anyways, he said, "Well, he had this story about Shepard talking about Greg Johnson." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, Shepard says he never said any of that." I look over at Shepard. He's kind of looking down at the
Oh my
floor.
gosh! Just the
Shepard
confrontation.
Shepard says he didn't say that. And I said, "Scotty, come on. You've worked with me long enough to know I don't misquote people. I'll screw up from time to time, but I'm pretty careful with other people's words. I don't misquote people." And a little bit of pause. And I said, "Scotty, what's this all about, really?" And he jumped up and he started screaming at me. I'll tell you, one of you bleeping guys is lying. And then I stood up. And I'm about this far away. I said, "Scotty, how do you know that anybody's lying? You couldn't tell the truth from a lie if your life depended on it." I said, "You're a pathological freaking liar." I mean, we were just screaming at one another, and I really thought, honest to God, the guy's 17 years older than me, but I thought he was going to hit me, and I didn't want that because he would have kicked the hell out of me. So we're screaming back and forth. And finally, something came to me. Shepard is just beside himself, just sitting there like a meek as a mouse. And I said, "Scotty, there might be an explanation for this. There might be an explanation." He said, "What's that?" And I said, "Ray and I were talking, and talking about Greg. He wasn't happy the way you were treating Greg Johnson. He likes playing with Greg. You're not giving him much ice time and so on. He's kind of the odd man out here. And Shepard's like standing up for a centerman, guy he likes to play with." And I said, at some point in the conversation, I took the reporter's notebook and I put it in my back pocket. We continued to talk. We're talking a little bit. And I said, Ray might have thought that part of what our conversation was off the record. He didn't think it was going to wind up in the newspaper, and it did. And maybe that's, and I look, Shepard looks up at me and says, "Oh, hey, like I was maybe saving him a little bit here, right?" And he kind of liked what I was making up on the spot.
Sure.
And so Scotty kind of acquiesced a little bit, and it kind of sort of resolved. And Scotty looked at Shepard, said, "Get the hell out of here. Bus leaves in 15 minutes, right?" And I don't know how I left it with Scotty, but we were able to sort of resolve. The bottom line is this, though, folks. I never put the notebook in my back pocket. Everything that Ray said was in that notebook. Everything. And but I sort of I remember going down into the dressing room after the game. You guys lost the game by 4-3, I think, or 3-2, whatever. But I walked in and I get a greeting by Dino Cicerelli and Shep was there, and Stevens. They pulled me back into the shower area and they're shaking my hand and they're patting me on the back, for like taking on for the team that day. And I felt like my status in the dressing room went from lower than whale poop up to a little higher. My standing was a little bit better in the dressing room after that. Of course, Shepard. Well, you know what happened to him? He was traded 18 days later.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Scotty traded all the guys who talked to us.
Yeah.
Sean Burr's gone. Dino Cicerelli's gone. Ray Shepard's gone. He would have traded Mike Vernon, but he needed him at the time because Mike talked
Yeah.
a little bit too, and he didn't like that. But he needed Mike Vernon. So, anyways, that was a fun moment.
Well, and famously, Scotty had the clock in the dressing room, right?
Oh.
That
Oh,
you know, the media
God.
members only had that much time to
The-
talk to the players, and
the
then
curtains
you know,
and the clock.
And,
The
and,
curtains were the best.
and the players would stay in the back. I mean, we were lucky if somebody came out. Usually it was Brendan Shanahan, sometimes Chris Drape or somebody, but nobody was coming out. The players were co-conspirators in that thing. I only wish that I
blame
would have
Ozzy.
taken
I blame
I would
Ozzy.
have taken one of Chris Osgood's goaltender sticks from the rack and
Yeah.
smashed that clock to bits and pieces and kind of made a big deal out of it. And because the league would have intervened, and because we in the media, John, had an argument. We had nobody to talk.
Oh yeah.
Nobody to talk with. We couldn't do our work. It was frustrating.
Well, and that's what made Scotty great, right? Was his ability to sort of control the temperature on his team and those around his team, and sort of it was us against them all the time, and that that's a big part of how he became the greatest coach in hockey history.
No question. And I must say, that sort of the bottom line to all this is, Scotty and I, though we had our moments, he agreed to write the forward to this Grindline book. It did was very gracious enough to do that. But Scotty called me out of the blue about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago. Just called me and said, "Keith," he said, "you were involved in that documentary film about the Russian Five. What was that like? And tell me about this and tell me about that." He's picking my brain.
Wow.
And he said, "I got these people coming after me. They want to do a documentary, and I'm not sure. My son Stan is after me to do it, and so on." He said, "Maybe you could talk to these guys and kind of figure out they're legit and so on." And he gave me the information, and I called these two filmmakers. They're pretty damn good. They made the documentary series about Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose, that's on HBO.
Sure.
They made that a series, and it's very, very good. But I had a talk with these guys. We chatted a little bit, and I said, "Look, Scotty's almost 92. He has turned 92 since, and he's a little anxious. He doesn't want to be taken advantage of, and so on, and he don't want to have to jump through a lot of hoops." And I basically found myself sort of representing Scotty Bowman a little bit, And as soon as I got off the phone with these guys, I called Scotty back and said, "You're good, Scotty. You're in good shape with these guys. They're going to take good care of you." I explained some of your concerns and so on. They're all in. They want to make this as good as the Pete Rose one and so on.
Mhm.
And they were in fact in Buffalo yesterday, interviewing Scotty Bowman to get that documentary started. So,
that's cool,
gentlemen, we
That's
could
cool.
have at least a good documentary or series on Scotty Bowman, the greatest coach of all time in the history of sports, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, so Keith gave so to all Red Wing fans listening and watching, if you haven't yet, pick up a copy of the Grind Line, the story of how that collection of players came together. The book about the Russian Five, the documentary about the Russian Five that includes a cameo appearance by Chris Osgood, just to make sure that the Goalies Union, I guess, is represented. Now a Russian Five feature film and a documentary about Scotty Bowman. Sir, your life is filled there from Houghton Lake.
Yes, it is. It's been fun. I'm looking forward to a hockey season. I'm looking forward to watching Chris. We're going to miss you, John, by the way. It's going to be interesting to see the new chemistry as it evolves and so on. But
I feel sorry.
especially
I feel
with
sorry
regard
for
to
who's
this
filling my
hockey
role.
team and what's going to happen with the Detroit Red Wings this year and beyond. I'm looking forward to Sergei's retirement ceremony and so on.
In January.
So, a lot to look forward to.
It is great to catch up with you. You are a legend in Detroit, and we can't thank you enough for your time here and the stories that you've shared and the stories that you continue to share. Keith, thanks very much, man.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Chris. See you soon, eh? Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll continue in a sec. All right, great to visit with Keith Gave. That brings back all kinds of memories for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. You do remember reporters through the years. I think it's changed a lot. Before you used to sit down.
Who were the others? Cynthia Lambert was there. George Sipple was
George
there.
Sipple was there.
Yeah.
a lot. And like when I was in Long
Kevin,
Island, Stan Fischler in Long Island.
Stan Fischler, yeah, right.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
different guys in New York. You got the old classic guys for sure that have been around for a long time.
Bob Duff and
Oh yeah,
Kevin
yeah,
Allen from the
Kevin
USA
Allen.
Today, yeah.
Yeah, Bob Duff. So you used to hang out with them a little more than they do now. There's a little more access to the players. So I do remember Keith Gave. He was around right in the heyday of when we were trying to figure out if we're going to win, and then eventually winning. So a lot of good times, but it's changed a lot. There's not as many reporters, I'll say, or it's done a different way, obviously because of online and how it works. There's not the newspapers, which I used to love the newspaper, sitting down in the morning with a coffee and reading the USA Today in the hotel on the road before playing a game in the playoffs. So you kind of miss those days, or the playoff preview in USA Today or the Free Press. So you miss those days.
Well, and again, I mean, I don't want to sound older than I already am, but I mean, a long time ago, just reading the Detroit Free Press, and I delivered the paper, and so it
Did you?
was one of the perks was, I mean, and I'm up at 4 o'clock every
Yeah.
morning delivering the paper, but one of the perks was I got to read the paper before anybody else, so I got to know the news before everybody else, and that
Mhm.
was long before cable television and all that kind of stuff, and so you found out what happened, that other people hadn't yet known, and then getting a chance to read, going right to the column and reading, Joe Falls and Jerry Green, the columnists,
Yeah.
and, thinking that, that was just very cool.
I stopped by my mom's house in Medicine Hat when I'm driving home in like June, July. My favorite thing is grabbing a coffee on her deck and reading the paper that I grew up with from when I was like 9 years old to whatever, the Medicine Hat News, and just threading through that. And they still have the standings in there. You remember the standings, the games the previous night, the stats. So there's something to be said that's
I know.
about a
It hurts.
newspaper. Just
I know, it hurts my heart. I mean, you walk by in a gas station and they have the papers there and
oh
they're only 10 pages or something like that. The
yeah,
Detroit papers aren't even printed in Detroit anymore. And I
no,
understand. I know the world has changed
yep.
and everybody, you can find everything online, and I'm one of those people too. But there's great nostalgia attached to actually picking up a newspaper and reading it.
As you would say, there's something to be said for something right in front of your eyes,
Yes. That, that I don't have to search too far for.
like
All
some
right.
nice ripples.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Who would have guessed that one word would be
I
so
know.
attached to
I,
to one podcast?
And I
So
think about other word plays, but I can't like plan any of this stuff. I learned that from you. Like what we did our show a lot was never planned, and neither
yeah.
was that. So it will happen again, but it has to happen organically, and eventually you'll say something to me, or I'll say something to you, and we'll come up with maybe another one, hopefully here along the line.
The beauty of being on TV with you, and you and I have talked about it, is that we had stuff planned. We had, we're going from here, we're going from here, we're going from here. And then mostly you driving the bus would take a sharp right turn and we would go careening into a
Oh,
ditch, basically,
yeah.
the show would, because you took us there. You grabbed the wheel and took over. And now we're in a ditch, but we're giggling, trying to find our way back onto the road. And then you bring in, Mickey Redmond post game,
Oh,
and I mean, it's all bets were off at that point.
I know
So
it's great. Watching I mean, Mickey Redmond and those shows and where we went, what we did. We always look back on it. We were just talking about today or the other day. Opening night game, Detroit. We doing post game. Well, we talked about the LA Forum and Dolly Parton for the first 10 minutes. Didn't even get to the
I
game
know,
for
I
quite
know.
some time. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, we're
Well,
definitely going to miss
even
those. And
yeah, even Steve Eiserman touched upon it on our last podcast that when it wasn't going, it wasn't a particularly good night for the Wings. It'd be fun to watch, what we had to say on post game. Anyway, yeah, I mean, you're going to have fun with
yeah.
Daniela or Logan or whoever's sitting next to you, and I'm going to be watching at home, just shaking my head.
You
So
think they're going to have fun? They don't even know what they're getting into. Like,
correct. I should send them maybe a condolence card.
yeah.
Be-
I looked at
because
this. I looked though, John. Of concern though. I'm looking at my phone. What's the date even today? The 30th. They open up when, the 9th or the 7th? I don't even. Now I know you're surprised. I don't know when the first game is
Well, and
or
the
not.
podcast is going to run when the podcast is, so don't be talking dates. I mean, this
Yeah,
is
I
going to
can't
run
do that.
after
I've
that.
done
I
that. I haven't
know,
done it for a while, but I'm
I
saying like
know. Yeah.
it's opening night. I'm concerned about my wardrobe fitting properly. So We're gonna have to really get that.
No, you look great. No, you look great.
Well, because listen, it's from here up right now. It's from here down that's a concern.
Yes. Well, but that's been your concern for quite some time,
I used
hasn't
to
it?
be in the
What's
shallow end of the pool. Now I'm in the deep end. Where is he? He's in the deep end treading water. Why?
what's happening at waist level has always
What?
been Ozzy's concern, and I'm not talking pucks, so that's a whole nother issue. All right, one question, and then we'll wrap things up. Quentin Brake asks,
Yeah.
is it cool or strange to have a McFarlane Toys figure made of yourself? I don't even know what that is, or whether you do. And do you wish it was during your time with the Wings? I know I do. Love the podcast. Thanks for doing this, guys.
But I don't have any with the Wings. I know about the Islanders. No, it's cool. But my kids used to like it. Now they think it's weird. They're little like action figure kind of in position of whether stopping a puck or in a move at a net. They kind of sat on like a little rink platform with a
Right.
crease and a
Right.
goalie net, and very detailed, by the way. I think I do have one with the Wings, a couple, but I do have a few here, but they're cool. No, those are actually that he mentioned. Out of all the stuff are some of my favorite stuff, and I do still have some. I actually still have some in the packaging still. So not that they're worth much.
All right.
Really
We're gonna
falling.
we're gonna need pictures of that so we can show the kids watching on YouTube.
I can get
when
some.
this- when
I
this
got them
ends.
right now. You want
Okay.
me to run upstairs and grab
No,
them?
I don't. No,
I
just
can't leave because I might not come back.
So I know that's the fear. It's like if I get
Where
you
is
digging
he?
through a drawer, yeah, and I'm just sitting here by myself, which is pretty much the way it was on TV.
Yeah.
I'm just talking
Oh.
to myself, and you're doing what you're doing, and oh my god! All right, last one for Ozzy.
Yeah.
I know that players often have a young fan that they have interacted with that they will never forget. You have a young fan. Is there somebody who asked you about being a goalie? I know they brought some of the Make-A-Wish kids through the dressing room a lot.
Yeah,
and
we always
I
went
thought
to
that was just goosebump stuff to see how you
Yeah.
guys interacted with those kids.
we always went to Children's Hospital once a year, and we always had kids in the locker room for sure that would have requests, and they come in, and there was more accessibility. I love when they have the kids read out the lineups now, and
Yeah.
they're like kind of the captain. Maybe they go on the ice for the pregame skate, and they skate with the team, and they're kind of on the team for that day. I think the NHL's done a brilliant job with that. I'd love to see more of that. But I love when I have this thing when you're a goalie, John, in like a goalie union. I always run into goalies, whether it's at Max's tournament or just that one. Always run into the goalie dads and the goalies. So I like talking to them, whether they're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have conversations. Like I mentioned, I was in Toronto last year. I ran into Ken Dryden, who just passed away. A great person, had a great career. But I always run into either former goalies or younger goalies. So I do love talking to the younger goalies. And they ask me questions now they're getting older, and we talk about where they're at, maybe their struggles or what they have to do to get better or what they like. So I really enjoy those interactions with them.
Have you had occasion where there is someone who you talked to when they were 10 or 11 or something like that, and now that you're 65, 70, whatever, however old you are, they come up to you and say to you, hey, you talked to me when I was 10 or 11 or about being a goalie, and it got me through high school or college or any of that
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people, I was a goalie, and I'll always run into people and they won't admit they're goalies at first that are my age. I was a goalie in the OHL. Or I was a goalie in at Western University. It always happens to me, and like goalies gravitate to each other for some
Yeah,
reason, and
right.
it's the weirdest thing. But they'll never tell me the first time whether it's somebody that coached on our team. And in fact, my son's team just played against this team from Hamilton. Their assistant coach, I'm talking to him forever, and he goes, "Yeah, I was a goalie for the Windsor Spitfires for a little while." Like I was like, "Oh, I never knew that." So and they had 4 or 5 coaches, but I talked to the guy that's the goalie. So it's this thing. It's this gravitational pull like a magnet. We just get together and we don't even know it at that moment in time, but eventually it comes out that we're both goalies. So
But
it's
apparently goalies are embarrassed to admit they're goalies. Is that what you're suggesting?
no,
You don't want to share that with people that you're a goalie?
goalies are secretly like the most fun to be around, the most down to earth guys. We are a little different, but that's a
Oh
good thing.
yes. Oh
But that's a
yes.
good thing. and there is a gravitational pull on this earth to us where everybody hangs around us all the time because the fun meter is always on high with us.
And that's why I have hung around you as long
Yes.
as I have.
You didn't
It's
even
the-
realize it, but you
it's
really
the
had
fun
no
meter. I had
choice.
no idea. I had no idea it would. Our union would last as long as it has and will continue to. And that's going to wrap it up for this
Nice.
installment of Ozzy and Keats. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Ozzy and Keats is produced by Zachary Davis and Bill McAllister and proudly distributed by Podcast Nation in Troy, Michigan.